First 4 episodes of Fionna and Cake are out, and it's already been a wild ride this early in. So far, what we have has absolutely exceeded my expectations, and I can't wait to see where the next episodes take us. I'm already overdue on making this video, so let's get right into talking about what I loved about the episodes. The first episode was basically what I expected, an entire episode set in Fionna's mundane city life to set the story up, and it works. The episode begins with a dream sequence with the most gorgeous art and animation inspired by Sailor Moon. I also have yet to see anyone else mention this, but the music is also really good, very upbeat and groovy, and it definitely reminded me of Steven Universe in parts. What I liked most about the dream sequence though was the ending. Fionna trying hard to swim up to the surface of the pool she's fallen into and not wake up to a boring life she knows is waiting for her outside of the dream. She's just really trying to hold on to it, and of course she fails. Soon after Fionna snoozes her alarm, we get a little intro, which we now know to be just a one-off intro for Fionna's episode and not the series itself. I'm sure everyone has heard it by now, but it's such a banger, and the art and animation accompanying it is also so pretty looking. The episode does a good job at showing us around Fionna's city and the basics of what her mundane life is like. We get to meet a few gender-swapped versions of characters from the main universe, but we stick with Gary and Marshall Lee the most. Marshall even gets a small song in this episode, which is pretty nice despite how short it is. We've even got a few obvious references to Ice King himself. Throughout the entire episode, Cake is being drawn to ice, which we soon see is a key to them crossing over into the other world. There's also that part in the beginning where Fionna lifts Cake up and tells her to stop acting crazy, which is basically the exact same way Marceline said it to Ice King in I Remember You. Cake, of course, ends up jumping into the ice at the end of the episode, which takes her to Ooh. And yeah, that's it. That's the episode. Pretty solid starting point. And I'm happy to tell you that next episode is even better. Simon gets a whole episode centered around him, which is very nice to see. It starts with a Simon and Marcy flashback where he basically talks about where Marcy would be without him and where he would be without Marcy, which he doesn't know. I thought this scene was nice, even if it's only there to tie into the theme of the episode. The music in the background is really heartfelt too. When we get to present day, we see that Simon lets the other humans, and I guess dogs, in the new human city ask questions about his 20th century life, cementing that he doesn't fit in with anyone, just how long he's been under the Crown's control, which is a pretty sad life, and he seems to be aware of that when he gets overwhelmed and closes shop for the day. I also want to mention the use of the Cheers theme in this episode. Whereas in Fionna's world, yeah, I know, I forgot to mention it, shush. Cheers is on every TV channel and she actively dislikes it and wants to watch something else. For Simon, the show is comfort and one of the only things he can salvage from his life back in the 90s, or going fully crazy. It plays as a soundtrack to his morning routine, and as it was one of the things that kept him grounded when he put the crown on to protect Marcy, it probably does mean a great deal to him and helps his well-being. Just a little bit. So anyway, for pretty much the rest of this episode, Finn takes Simon on a quest to get over his sadness, and while I'm sure it's in good heart, it definitely does not help him out. Finn has a habit of putting Simon in danger just so he can feel the excitement of the adventure saving him, and you can tell it's just pretty unhealthy coping mechanism he has, especially after Jake's passing. While Simon is more worried about Finn getting injured than himself, and throughout the entire day ignores his own problems because he doesn't want his friends and family to freak out about him. I really liked part of the madness and that whole sequence, and it was great to see what Marcy and PB have been up to since the events of Obsidian, even if it comes with a cost, that cost being Simon's troubles being pushed to the side again. Simon clearly has yet to come to terms with Betty's sacrifice, because as soon as he's home, he attempts to open a portal to Golb's dimension to see her again, but it doesn't work when he opens a portal inside his own head instead, where Fionna and Cake's universe is located. Cake jumps out, and that's that. This was a fantastic episode, and shows us where Simon is at this point in his life, and how it's not a good place. I also liked seeing Finn, who seemed to be coping well in some ways, e.g. trusting his instincts and surroundings enough to willingly wear a blindfold like in Hall of Egress, and coping not so well in others, like how I mentioned before, that he uses adventures to take his mind off of things instead of facing problems head on. And he totally wanted to help Simon out, but just didn't consider how the strategy might not exactly work for him. Episode 3. Okay, to be honest, I don't have a whole lot to say about this episode, as I'm sure a few others haven't either. It's pretty much just an episode to bridge into the next one, and it's also the episode where Fionna enters Ooh. I will say though, Cake on the Loose is a great jam of a song, And seeing Finn and Jake on the screen in the time room at the beginning was interesting, but I still don't know if it's a flashback or an alternate universe. I guess we'll have to see. Prismo's episode brings a lot of interesting lore drops, the most notable being the way that Prismo was the one who created Fionna Cake, not the Ice King. The way it's shown is pretty funny. He knows he's copying Finn and Jake, and he doesn't care. Seeing that Fionna and Cake are in a world they shouldn't be, Prismo teleports them to the time room to explain everything to them. And yeah, basically this episode is just one big explanation to what's going on before the adventure stuff starts, while Simon gets drunk in the background. There's nothing wrong with that though. In the same episode, we're introduced to the villain trying to hunt Fionna and Cake down and capture them, the Scarab. And we see how he wants to take over Prismo's place as Wishmaster, and this is his perfect opportunity to do so, since Prismo created an unauthorized universe when he created Fionna and Cake. Also, Prismo shows Simon his worst moments on the big screen, which just depresses him and makes him sulk even more. And I mean, fair enough. The end of this episode was just crazy and had me yelling at my screen. It wasn't even just Simon straight up saying that he needs to become Ice King again, but also his reaction to wearing his Ice King clothing in general and how he ends up being okay with it despite Prismo being the one who gives it to him. It's just so sad. After I finished this episode, I thought about how Prismo creating a universe for himself makes sense. He lives alone in a cube in the middle of nowhere, which he can't leave, and he spends his entire life doing favors for everyone except himself. It must get boring, not to mention isolating. So yeah, crazy episode. In conclusion, I'm enjoying Fionna and Cake a lot so far. Having new Adventure Time content is amazing, and I just know this series is going to get even crazier from here. With that being said, I will probably make a first impressions video for the next 2 episodes that come out, rather than another video like this, you know, like an unscripted one. That's what I mean for the next video. Trust me, I meant to give my thoughts on the premiere, but I kinda waited too long. Anyway, are you enjoying the series? Let me know your thoughts. Or don't. Until next time, friends.